Hello, welcome pen friends. Welcome to my review of Callifolio Andrinople. It's kind of a re-review or revisit, and I'm doing this as a collaborative project with Miss Marilyn Darling. So I'm going to link his channel down below. We're releasing our re-reviews at the exact same time on our own channels. So it'll be really interesting because we have not compared notes about this ink. So what I'll do first is I'll recap what I had to say about it the last time, which was at least a year ago. It was more than a year ago. And this was my original journal page about it. So we get to see the water test. We see that just like on the tile, it's very typical fountain pen ink, and it's not water resistant. And so there's that, and here is the chromatography. But I had to watch the little segment of my review to see what I said. And what I said then was that it has a lot to offer, that it's a gorgeous ink, and that it had nice medium shading. And at the time I was comparing it with one of the other inks in my red series, or red, and I did red, magenta, pink, and I compared it with KOBE number 41 Suma Riku Rose. So that was interesting. Let's see, I think that was the one. Yeah, that was the day before. So I'll link you that video too, but I just thought it would be nice to see what I thought about it then. And it was just basically a 1 day of 30 inks, 30 days. So this time I put it in 3 pens. I've written with it for a week. I've done several letters where I would start the letter with the broad nib. So this is the Lamy Vista with the broad nib. And then I would go into the Safari with the extra fine nib. And then just for the heck of it, I put a Lamy 1 point. Ooh, I think I'm going to have to fix that finial, or the screw inside there. The Lamy 1.1 nib on a Wing Sung 3008. So that's where I'm coming from when we hop into the ink journals, just so you know. And I think what we'll do, we'll start right in the CVS Caliber, because this is a paper that I use every day for note-taking and also sometimes for letter writing, because I have a tablet of this too. Now, it did really well with the broad nib. I said this was a good option for this ink and paper. It flows pretty well, not as wet as Yamabudo. Okay, so that's something that I picked up a little bit of experience with a few more inks since the time that I did the first review. And then in the extra fine nib, it was kind of dry. It felt kind of yucky on this paper. But it did okay on Rhodia, so we'll be looking at that. And then this looks really nice. The 1.1 stub in the Wing Sung, I said this is okay on this paper, not too draggy, but the broad is a better feeling writing experience. So some things you can't tell by how it looks. It was a better feel in this one, but you get a more saturation coming out. The Wing Sung just puts down a lot of ink. Okay, so let's also look in the CVS Caliber notebook. Okay, so I just wanted to show you that these are some of the notes I took with the Callifolio Andrinople in my CVS Caliber notebook. And I think I was reading The Body Keeps the Score. So I also used a water brush, and I tried out each one of the different... Oh, okay, so I used the Wing Sung 3008 just as a little sample here. And I was using the broad nib primarily. It looks like all this was with the broad nib. And then... I want to say I pulled this nib out, but maybe we'll have to try that here because I don't see it. I guess I don't favor an extra fine nib. Okay, I even pulled out my TWSBI VAC 700R with Yamabudo just to compare it, and it looks more purpley to me. Let's see if you can see that. Oh, I did scrawl down the extra fine nib here. I just don't think it felt very good on this paper, so I was using the ones that did. But here's the Yamabudo. It looks a lot more purpley than the Andrinople. But again, this paper can be a little bit different. Let's see. Let's grab this one and just write with it quick. Okay, so Lamy, Safari, extra fine. It's not that it's terrible, but and there, it feels like there's some kind of texture there. It just isn't as nice on the CVS Caliber with an extra fine. Callifolio. Okay, I think there was probably a reason why I just stuck mainly with the, it's not dry on the paper, it just feels a little bit drier. So, okay, let's move on to the Tomoe River paper. And here it is in the Galen Leather Everyday Notebook. This is 52 GSM Tomoe River paper. I have it here in the broad nib and then the extra fine. It looks such a different color almost in each one of the nibs. That's something to keep in mind. Here it is in the 1.1 stub. I feel like there was really good flow on this paper with the stub nib. It gives you that darker end of the saturation that this ink does have, because it's not very highly saturated. It's more of a medium to low saturation. And here's the little water test. Okay, and then we'll hop into the, this is the Bond Travel Gear 68 GSM Tomoe River paper. And I did my splatters on there. I'm seeing throughout, I'm seeing at least a little bit of subtle shading. So, and I really kind of like it the best in the broad nib. So it was really nice. It's a nice color. But to me, I've worked with some purples that have a little bit more pop since then. You know, since I last looked at this ink. This is the Noodler's Ahab. I pulled this out and I thought I was going to have enough ink, but there just wasn't. There wasn't enough. But you can see how much darker it gets in that nib, because that one it's an Ultra Flex from Fountain Pen Revolution. It just puts down a lot of ink. And here it is in the broad nib with a lot of nice shading. The shading is much more subtle in the extra fine. But I do recommend this for any time you're in like a Hobonichi or a small grid paper, or if you have tiny writing. I've got a couple pen pals that have really nice small writing, and they would do really good with that. And again, the Wing Sung 3008, it's so vibrant and smooth on Tomoe River if you get it into a stub nib with some good flow. I've written like 4 pen pal letters, used all 3 of the different nibs in the letter, so it's going to look a little silly, but I explained in the letters what I was doing. Oh, it was so funny. Okay, and then this morning I pulled out the Rhodia paper. I don't do that very often, but something made me wonder if maybe it would be good on this paper, and sure enough, it really is. It's very well behaved on the Rhodia, which is not my favorite paper, but here it is in the broad nib and then in the stub nib. I was trying to test drying, but it didn't take too long. It looked like it was going to take about 20 seconds. And then so I put it in the extra fine nib. And it wasn't, let's see, it wasn't what I would call too dry or anything. I'm just not used to the extra fine nib. But it's going down nicely. Not super wet, but you wouldn't expect that from an extra fine. So I think that you would get along just fine with this. Whoops, EF, extra fine. It's all comes down to preference, I think, is what it is. But it's just a nice, well-behaved ink. Those are the papers that I mostly use. Definitely not Rhodia. That's not my number one. So next, let's look at just some eye candy, I guess you'd call it. This is a Hobonichi Weeks that was sent by a generous viewer, and I got out a bunch of my pinks and purples, not all of them, but I put Callifolio Andrinople here. Let's see, and I've got another little chart. This one I did a long time ago, so we're gonna put this here too, because there may be a couple that I didn't get. Yeah, I can see right away that there's a couple I didn't get on this newer one. So I thought it was really neat how closely Callifolio Andrinople lined up with Ferris Wheel Press Double Raspberry. And Ferris Wheel Press inks tend to be a little more flowy. So if you were looking for that color family, but you didn't want quite as dry of an ink, you might try the Ferris Wheel Press, because that's a nice one. And then Pilot Iroshizuku Yamabudo is just so gorgeous. It's pretty. It's got a lot more of that gold sheen. I'm going to try to tip that so you can see it. Of course, we got sheen down here on Sailor Akabe and on the other Pilot Iroshizuku, the pink one, the Tizitsu. Oh my goodness. I should never try to say those. But this was just a lot of fun, and I did share an image of this, but then I added Diamine Gratitude Magenta, which is much more purple. If you could compare the two, it's much more purple. I added Diamine Claret as soon as that came through the door too, because on the surface they look very similar. But there's a big difference in how they looked in the nibs, which is something that I'll need to get into more with the next review, actually, because I haven't had fully time to explore the Claret. It just came in. But that was really neat. It's still off a little bit, though. It's not the same shade. I just enjoy so much comparing these. So this is one of my favorites, Vinta Maycopa. I've been raving about it. It was my favorite January ink and pen. I had it in a little Moon Man. And then Sailor Manyo Akabe is one of my very favorites. It's a stainer, though, and Andrinople is not a stainer. So you can see there's a little more vibrance in the magenta coming out of Akabe. And you will have to be a little bit more careful with what you put it in and how much work you have to do to clean up your pens. So let's see what we got over here that's different. Here's what I'm using. It's much more purple, though, the Platinum Silky Purple. And I had it right next to Andrinople, so you can see that. And, you know, I probably should have pulled out Straits Pen Honest Ink Bougainvillea Purple. That's one of my favorites, too. Kind of got bumped off by Sailor Akabe. But we've got Noodler's Segura Wine. And I think, let's see, Cactus Fruit Eel is another one we're going to look at in a minute. Yeah, okay, here's Noodler's Cactus Fruit Eel. But that's not as red, see? So this has just been a lot of fun. But this ink, when you get right down to it, you can end up buying a pouch for $9 and have your ink cost 18 cents a mil. So it's got a lot going for it that way too. Okay, let's do a traditional ink panel. I'll be right back with that. Okay, this could get a little overwhelming, but this is the Callifolio Andrinople. This is today's ink. And then I've just surrounded it with inks that either make me think of it or are in that nice, bright, pinky red or magenta category that we all kind of love. I don't have any more of this Tasha Abbey Purple Red, but it really made me think of that. That's a really nice way to label or name an ink too. And of course, Sailor Akabe is just one of my absolute favorites. It's an expensive ink though. So if you're looking for, you know, a close one, but don't want to pay the price of the Sailor ink, that's a good bet too. And then the Pilot Iroshizuku Yamabudo, you can't go wrong with that ink. So you just can't go wrong with it, I don't think. Here's Diamine Claret. I felt like Andrinople pops just a little bit more coming out of the broad nib. And gosh, where did I write with this? I know I've written with it, but I wasn't fully organized to compare the two because it just came through the door. But it did. I'm really happy that people recommended that one to me because it's pretty and I'm enjoying it. If it's between these two, I like the Andrinople a little bit better. And it's not the flow, it's the color. It's the actual color shade because the flow in this one is probably a little bit more juicy. So, and then Levenger Shiraz, that's deeper. It's more burgundy. It's extremely flowy. This one here, you might even want to have a fine nib for this one. And then this is one of my absolute favorites, Vinta Maycopa, Sailor Manyo. So if it's an ink shootout for me, then we just quickly make everything disappear here. Oh. And we're kind of down to the ink of the day and these two, because that's where I'm at right now anyway. And of course, we're all going to be a little bit different. But before I share with you my top pink, I'm going to share with you the report card that I made. I did this because I really love the little book from the pen thing. I'm going to grab it. I really love his book, but I used it all up and I finished it. So I just kind of did a typewritten. Let me make this a little bit bigger so we can read it a little bit better. I just put it in my printer and I did a little bit of, see if we can see that pretty sheen there. It does have it, but it's hard to capture it on the light. Little report card so we could talk about, try to consolidate some of these thoughts. So I'm using the Lamy Vista on this paper here with the broad nib. And I first inked up the 3 pens on the 23rd. Oh, I didn't put remarks. Well, you're going to get plenty of remarks because this is what I'm doing, I guess. But so I added a few little tags here to what Brian had in his book, because I always like to look at the price. So in terms of the price, the 50 ml pouch is what attracts me. It's $9. And then they have a bottle that's the same as the Diamine 100th anniversary. I think it's $13 for the 35 ml, but that's, you can already do the math. That is not the same deal. So, however, when I first started looking into this, it was in stock at Van Ness, but right now it is not. They have samples in stock, at least at the moment when I was checking today, January 31st. I'm filming this because I need to be able to schedule it for tomorrow so that we have our videos out at the very same time. So availability, I said yes, but then I said oops, because it changed really quickly. So that might not be, that's not going to be steady depending on when you're watching it. But generally speaking, I've found the ink. It's just that we've now talked about it and people may have gone and ordered. I said the flow was dry to okay. I gave it a 4. I like the price and the availability very much. That's subject to change. And I thought the flow was, it's okay, but it's a little bit dry. I really believe you want a broad nib or a stub. The saturation is low, but it's pretty and it's definitely readable. But where I get into trouble is where I know about these other ones that pop just a little bit more in the nib. And so that's where I start getting very finicky about it. Okay, water resistance is, there's no water resistance with this ink, but that's very typical and doesn't bother me at all. Shading, I gave it a 6, a little above average. Color, I put like. Okay, so whether or not I like a color is really going to influence, and it's right in the middle. I like it. It's not the best and it's not the worst. It's right in the middle for me. Dry time, let me make sure you're able to read this, because I said it was medium, but that never bothers me. I keep all kinds of different blotter papers available, and even the CVS Caliber works as a nice blotter paper. So feathering. Okay, the papers that I used, I didn't get any feathering, but you might want to watch Marilyn's video. Definitely you're going to want to watch it, because he and I don't use the same papers, and that's where we thought that 2 reviewers that use such different tactics and papers would be of value to you as a viewer if you're considering the ink, because I'm using CVS Caliber and Tomoe River almost exclusively now. I just work around it. I find the inks and pens that go good on the CVS Caliber, because I take so many notes. I would never be able to use just the Tomoe River paper. Okay, so let's see, feathering. Yeah, we're not. I had a positive result on that because of my paper. Sheen, I said 0, but I suppose there's definitely a little bit where there are splatters, but that's not what I'm seeing in the writing. So I'm not seeing halo and definitely no shimmer. So my overall opinion, 1 to 10, I give the ink a steady 5. Like it's a good ink. It's a very good ink, especially when you consider the price and the beauty of the color and the safety for all of your pens. So that's my opinion, really. It's a good solid ink. It's gorgeous. And let's see, that old thing I said it had a lot to offer, was gorgeous, and had good medium shading. So I really haven't, excuse me, I haven't changed my opinion of it. I wouldn't say it has really changed. What has changed is my exposure to more inks. And so let me show you. This is my little box of color that runs all the way from, well, up here I've got some more colors that I had been looking at to compare with this one. Then I've got all these purples. Then it goes into, well, they're all out of order right now because I've got some maroons that I like to look at with pink. And then it moves into pink. And then, of course, I've got some reds that are mixed in. But this is the reason why it gets tricky for me, because of so many. So I couldn't really feel it was fair to compare Callifolio Andrinople with the Pilot, with the really pink one, because they're such different shades. You see, these are, these kind of go together. But because if it was fair, this would be my favorite. But picking from the ones that are very similar, it would have to be Sailor Banyo Akebi. That's my favorite. With a very close second to Vinta Me Copa because of the way it behaves on my favorite paper. Just amazing. I mean, you can just take that CVS Caliber, and if you're a note taker and you happen to like a magenta with a nice green sheen, kind of dulls it a little so it doesn't make your eyeballs stand out, you're going to love this. But this is definitely the winner for me, is the Sailor Akebi. Let's see, just for fun, let's see if there were any that I forgot. I know we ran through most of these. Yeah, we ran through most of these. Of course, the Segura wine is gorgeous. And the King Philip is just way too hardy and too purple to compare. I need more time with the Diamine Claret. Robert Oster Hot Pink was drier than Andrinople. I really should have that in the middle so we know where we're looking. Yeah, and because that's a pretty one, but it's quite a bit drier than Andrinople. Cactus Fruit Eel is another gorgeous one, but see how you're getting over into clearly magenta purple kind of. So we can't really, we got to eliminate those. And then back to where I was before, comparing with Suma Riku Rose. I love that one and I love this one. But they seem to be moving further away on the color palette. Let's see. I love Lamy Vibrant Pink too. Kindness Pink. Oh, this is another really pretty one, but it's more red. The Pelican Edelstein Star Ruby. Okay, I think you get the point here. There's quite a bit of ink in my world, which is so wonderful. But I stand behind my little report card here. I think it's a great ink. And if you get a chance to get a pouch of this, I would say go for it. It's gorgeous. You could share it, or you could just recant it into a bottle. And it's wonderful. And I can't wait to see what Marilyn says about the ink. I just can't wait, because I'm thinking, this is my prediction, not having seen anything except for the initial, thoughts in the other video. I'm thinking that this ink may not give him as much trouble on his like composition notebooks that are cheaper paper, because of the fact that it's a little bit drier and it dries quickly. I don't know. That's just what I was wondering, and I can't wait to see whether that's right or not. It certainly enjoys the papers where it sits on top, like the Tomoe River, and even the, well, it did good on Rhodia too. So I'm really interested to see whether it's going to soak into the mead paper or whether he's going to find it a good experience. Otherwise, it'll probably end up being a chicken feather, which is never good, but... Okay, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you'll head over to watch what Marilyn has to say about this ink, and hopefully we'll find more availability. I'm starting to see some inks are hard to find. Like, I was trying to find a bottle of Cross Violet, and I'm just super, super grateful that I have had several little samples to put together, because I cannot find a bottle of it. And I think that maybe some of the availability is a little harder right now due to all of the things that are going on with distribution and stuff. So I will talk to you on the next video, and thank you so much for watching and supporting us in our little endeavor. And let us know in the comments if you like to see what two different reviewers think of the same ink. I think it's kind of cool, you know, to just get totally different opinions and look at it from different perspectives and paper and pens and the whole 9 yards. So, all right, I'll see you next time. Bye for now.